Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from the Goji Center about can Vhaghar, I have no idea if that's how you pronounce the name, can survive Skull Island. Let's see what would happen when this creature is dropped on.
Today on Goji Center, two cinematic universes will collide as we witness Vhaghar, queen of all
Vhaghar. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
dragons, stop by one of the most dangerous places in the Monsterverse, Skull Island.
Bum, bum.
Settling in nature's epitome of hell will not be easy, as this place is crawling with the worst detestable and battle-hardened creatures imaginable. Will she survive, or will Skull Island demote her to the lower ranks of the food chain? Make sure to stick around to find out. Subscribe, and let's dive right in.
Well, first thing I can say is that she's already got a bonus. She's massive, she can breathe fire, and she can fly. But then it all comes to her durability. How good can she defend herself?
For those who aren't familiar with the dragons from the Song of Ice and Fire, don't worry, we'll give you a quick rundown of what type of creatures we're talking about. In this series, dragons are legendary, fire-breathing creatures known for their immense size, strength, and longevity. These dragons, like the popular Balerion, the Black Dread, Vhaghar, and Drogon, can grow indefinitely, becoming larger and more powerful as they age, provided they have enough food. Covered in tough, heat-resistant scales, they possess formidable natural armor that protects them from most attacks. Their fire breath is incredibly potent, so much that it's capable of melting steel. These dragons are also highly intelligent, capable of racking up valuable combat experience over their long life, given that they don't get killed. And in this episode, it just so happens that Vhaghar is in fact one of the—
One question is, what can even kill a dragon?
the most experienced dragons in this franchise. To come up with a fair and accurate verdict on whether or not she can survive this island, we'll give a more detailed rundown of her abilities and physical traits before she arrives on Skull Island. We don't have much time left. She's closing in quite fast. Vhaghar, at the time during the events depicted in the book Fire and Blood or HBO's hit series House of the Dragon, was the largest dragon left alive. In her early years, she was part of a powerful trio of dragons who conquered a part of the world known as Westeros. Being the smallest of those three dragons at the time, Vhaghar gained valuable experience fighting alongside another large dragon known as Meraxus and the notorious Balerion the Black Dread. After the death of the other two dragons, Vhaghar remained the largest dragon during the events of Fire and Blood. How big was she? Well, estimates are all over, but the word from the VFX artist did imply that the wingspan of this animal was 150 meters wide, proportionally putting her entire
Damn, that's just under 500 feet.
Body length more or less at 90 meters, depending on her posture. For reference, her wingspan, that is, fully extended, would actually surpass the entire height of legendary Godzilla. So yes, as we can see, Vhaghar is actually no pushover. This is without mentioning her other abilities, also present in the rest of the dragons in this franchise. To begin, all of these dragons based on their anatomy would technically be considered wyverns, given that they only have 2 legs, have pointy tails, and use their wings for both air and ground locomotion. They grow indefinitely, meaning that as long as they are alive, they'll continue to grow, depending on other factors as well, such as where they are
Hey, are we sure these are dragons and not lobsters? Ha!
kept, if they are fed well, etc. Vhaghar, in this case, was a dragon that did live a very long time, more than 180 years. Note that not all dragons got to live this long, most of which would get killed in combat. Lastly, we must mention the obvious: fire. That's right, in this universe, fire is one of the most feared weapons of all, wielded by all dragons, but Vhagar's fire was probably one of the worst, known to incinerate entire cities and hot enough to melt armor and even stone. And oh, looks like Vhaghar is just arriving. Okay, so, like every other living creature, as soon as an animal moves into a new, unknown territory, their objective is to try to settle in as well as possible. As seen in our previous episode discussing the Night Fury in Skull Island, Vhaghar will also try to meet her base biological needs as quickly as possible. This includes breathable air, water, food, stable body temperature, and shelter.
Now, breathable air should not be any kind of worry considering, well, she's on Earth, so she'll be fine. But the water and food Well, everything else, those are going to be the battle standouts.
Fortunately for an airborne creature like Vhaghar, she has the advantage of flight. Here's a good time to emphasize another characteristic of the dragons from this universe. They are exceptionally smart. Some may argue a little too smart. But put simply, these animals are very good problem solvers, have a very good memory, form deep bonds with their riders, and are able to connect with them emotionally. Many of them have their own personalities, and younger dragons are usually the reckless ones that get killed rather quickly. Vhaghar in this case has enough experience to make the right decisions as soon as she enters this territory. During her earlier years, she would have been introduced to the concept of scouting enemy territory. First flying very high to look down at enemy defenses, their position on the map, and waiting for the right time to engage in combat.
Meaning there's a high likelihood she would have been able to spot Kong from that height and be able to figure out to avoid the big bad monkey.
And listening to her rider if the odds are in her favor. Or not. But still, in this scenario, Vhaghar will be flying high to scout the entirety of this island, taking note of different types of terrain, any predators of note big enough to be seen from high altitudes, where water sources are, identifying prey animals, and figuring out what to avoid. But will she meet any resistance in the air? Well, she just might. Enjoying this episode? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button to not miss any cool breakdowns, size comparisons, what-if scenarios like this one, and the upcoming face-off. And don't forget to check out our merch store, too. There's no such thing as safe on this island. The words borrowed from Dr. Grant would be better applied here, but also apply in the skies surrounding this place. Up here we find one type of creature that will probably, at best, be a serious nuisance to Vhaghar.
Oh yeah.
Psycho vultures. These animals are more or less the drug addicts of Skull Island, ingesting the toxic properties.
These things are like what would happen if you took a bat and a crackhead and put them in a blender. Because this is what you get. A crack bat.
Of a certain
Oh, crack bat. Why did they actually call it that? I guess because the name is a bit too funny.
Type of pufferfish, instigating a crazy killing spree using their sharp claws, razor-sharp teeth, and electric shocks. These tend to fly alongside a few individuals, anywhere from 3 up to a dozen, maybe more. Vhaghar will inevitably run into a flock of these psychos and get zapped in the process. But will this bring her down? No. Remember, an animal this large is too big to be brought down by a few psycho vultures spitting small electrical currents. Will they attack an animal larger than itself? Yes, during the events of Kingdom Kong, this guy was attacked by a flock of these animals. So it's safe to assume that psycho vultures will also foolishly attack Vhaghar. And
he literally bit one out of the ale.
Foolishly, because as soon as she feels the first zap, she'll unleash a flame so big and hot that it will be capable of turning all of these animals into ashes in midair. Any surviving psycho vultures will fly away and never mess with Vhaghar again.
Damn right.
I like to think that it won't take long for Vhaghar to find a place to nest in Skull Island, landing in the high elevation areas where she can have a good view of what's going on in her surroundings. Next, she'll try to find food. In the TV series, we see that dragons are known to eat livestock mostly. When that's scarce, they'll then resort to eating other supplements. This affinity to livestock will be satisfied with the presence of more or less similar animals, such as the cervids that dwell on this island. But a more proper meal that will meet this dragon's high caloric needs will be something like a skur buffalo. Although these are dangerous animals, Vhaghar will only need to hover above one of these creatures and blast fire hot enough to kill and cook this animal alive. The remaining animals would flee and leave this colossal animal alone while she eats. So far, it seems like this animal is settling in pretty well. Animals like Mother Longlegs, Icarus Tiger, Death Jackals, Juvenile Skullcrawlers, and Gigacrocs are really no match for an animal that measures around 90 meters in length and can dispatch them easily by just burping fire. If, for whatever reason, an animal like the Mother Longlegs decided to swarm this dragon, they'd be risking not only their own lives, but the lives of other species as well. She hates being bothered and is seen to lose her temper quickly. So upon realizing that they are more or less hard to see in the bamboo forests, she'll likely light up the entire area, killing them all at once and any other creatures in this forest. Are there any other animals that will hinder Vhaghar from meeting her base needs? Let's talk about water. Skull Island is notorious for having plenty of creatures that blend in seamlessly with their surroundings, a couple of which live in fresh water.
Now, the Siren Jaw, literally what he was bringing up, I don't see that being a threat, because the only thing about it is the only way it eats is via just standing there and letting you walk into its mouth. So unless he's sticking her head in, he should be completely fine. Unless he's somehow dumb enough for that, but no, dragons, like they've been saying, these dragons are hyper intelligent. So the only aquatic creature I could see being a threat would be the ambush predator, I forget what it's called, and the krakens. Other than that, should be completely fine.
Jaw crocodiles are huge animals that ambush unsuspecting prey when they get near. Another one, known as the swamp locust, uses its tree-like limbs to ensnare prey.
The swamp
However,
locust.
we are not talking about a small animal here. We're talking about a massive 90-meter-long creature with one of the largest skulls in the series. Any foolish siren jaw that dares attack a creature this large will probably be able to bite the head to no avail. Only to find itself turned into roast croc soup, with the rest of the lake inhabitants as the sides. So, in the end, any species of animal that unsuccessfully attacks Vhaghar will end up writing itself in this creature's menu. To be fair, however, not every animal in Skull Island is this stupid. Let's be real. Just like in the real world, seeing how lions won't attack a fully grown elephant, most Skull Island creatures would simply try to avoid Vhaghar, lest they get roasted. But there are some animals that will eventually cause some serious trouble. There are 3 that we will discuss in this episode, and 1 you won't even see coming. We'll start.
I'm gonna have to place a bet and guess that the 3rd one is, weirdly enough, humans.
Start with Ramarak. That's right, of course we're going to bring this one up. What would happen if this animal ran into Vhaghar? Realistically speaking, given that Vhaghar will either spend most of her time on high altitudes, that being flying, or in her high-perched nest, it's likely that she'll be able to see any of these 3 first before she engages in combat. Up here, she'll be able to assess the threat, and even figure out what to do if one of these decides to come chasing after her. Vhaghar is not stupid either. Neither is she a troublemaker. In the Song of Ice and Fire series, these dragons pretty much coexist with humans, to some degree. The wild dragons with Outriders never seek to wipe out all humanity and usually keep to themselves. Vhaghar is no different, and most likely will not instigate any of these fights unless provoked. A fight between these 2 would be started by Ramarak, but since he can't fly, it would have to be Vhaghar who must oblige. If for whatever reason she determines that Ramarak must die,
Ramarak would just be standing down there like yelling at her, like, come on, you big bitch, come down here and fight me. You big lizard, a big lizard. And then Vhaghar would just be like, whack, pooh, and just spit on it, and with fire and instantly cook it alive. If Ramarak's still dying, we'd be like, is that all you got? Skullcrawlers are like the jackass of Skull Island.
She'd simply fly low enough to unleash a flaming inferno that will envelop Ramarak and critically injure him. Even if the Skull Devil uses its leaping ability and releases his tongue to try and reach the dragon, this fire would have been released anyways. Vhaghar by no means will risk engaging in a purely melee confrontation, so fire would likely be the way to go here. This confrontation wouldn't exactly be fair, since we're talking about an airborne animal with fire ability against a terrestrial creature whose species isn't really fire resistant. Without a real way to ambush Vhaghar, it seems like Ramarak isn't really going to be a problem. But what about Kong? Well, this one is interesting, and will likely not go the way you want it to.
I could actually see these 2 just being, like, respectful of each other. Like, she has the skies, he has the land, let them be.
Those Monsterverse fans among you know for a fact that Kong isn't necessarily a troublemaker either. In Skull Island, he detests those who kill for no reason, he hates skullcrawlers, but understands that all animals need to eat. And being a meat eater himself, he'll only eat what's necessary. Vhaghar is more or less the same, actually. But will they have any form of conflict? To be more clear and make this easy to imagine, we can discuss what happens if Vhaghar pulls up to Skull Island in 1973 and in the year 2019. In these 2 scenarios, we have Kong, who is 104 feet in height, and 2019, where he's in the 330-plus foot range. Teenager Kong in 1973, upon seeing Vhaghar, realizes that this animal is better left alone, as long as it doesn't cause any trouble, such as bombing the place for no real apparent reason. These
Damn
two animals
humans.
standing next to each other would look like an interesting fight. Consider that Kong in his adolescent and adult forms isn't really the most fireproof, but this guy is pretty good at using tools.
Still
Spears
love it.
especially. And considering that this sort of projectile has been the most effective man-made anti-dragon solution in the series, one well-placed hit to this slow-moving dragon will potentially result in a critical injury. A large, full-grown adult Kong in 2019 would prove even more dangerous, dwarfing Vhaghar in size and strength. One hit with a projectile
Oh,
such
damn.
as this one is instant death. Likewise, one Inferno Blast such as this one to the adolescent one is likely the equivalent of a third-degree burn for this Kong, leaving
No
him
doubt.
critically injured, if not killed. But will this even happen? No, both animals would likely stay out of each other's way. Both are intelligent creatures and will more likely than not learn to respect each other's boundaries.
See,
and over
even I
time
call
even
that.
develop some sort of symbiotic dynamic between them, since they are both emotional creatures who understand gestures, feelings, and are both not necessarily mindless killers. This interaction between both creatures can be a topic of its own. But now that we determined that this isn't really a plausible conflict, let's talk about an animal that will definitely be a serious problem.
Humans?
The animal that we're about to discuss isn't really the most popular creature in the monsterverse, not the strongest megafauna, but one that will potentially cause a serious problem to Vhaghar. The killer chameleon. One?
Wait.
No,
Wait.
a whole pack of them. Let
What?
us explain. These animals
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to explain, because what the hell are you talking about?
aren't the largest next to Vhaghar herself. The real strength of these creatures is their agility and bite. But you may be thinking, how can these creatures reach Vhaghar if she's way up high in the air? Good
Well, the
thinking.
tongue.
We'll have you know about a third ability. The notorious long, elastic, ballistic tongue present in real-life chameleons alive today. Here's where we'll have our issue. If Vhaghar ever gets too close to these well-camouflaged mega chameleons, these would all either leap or use their long tongues to grip onto the body of Vhaghar, making her lose her balance and be brought down. Because
Okay,
this isn't a
okay,
single
I can
animal,
see
Vhaghar
that.
would be facing formidable, agile foes on many fronts. Even if she does manage to roast one of them, the remaining chameleons would have enough time to leap and gore into this animal. The outcome depends on who sees who first. Given that Vhaghar is known to be a notoriously good ambusher, to make up for its slow speed, it's likely that she would in fact be the first to see these anyways. If she doesn't, then she risks being brought down by a pack of these reptiles. So, to answer the question, will Vhaghar survive this place? The answer, yes. In fact,
Oh yeah, it's
she'll
a
fit
hot
right
yes.
in. Her characteristics will allow her to more or less coexist with Kong, and whenever food becomes scarce, she'd simply find a new home. There are very few animals here that would pose a serious threat. Titans such as Kamazots wouldn't really be a problem, since he only dwells in very dark environments. Furthermore, it's likely that the
He's staying
experienced
down.
dragons from this series, such as Vermithor, Meraxus, and Balerion, would likely fit right in on this island as well.
Well, as long as there's enough food going around, that is. Alright, everyone, well, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.